Hi. Um, I'm under the understanding that we were going to show the TED Talk first, so I'm
I will
not
bring that
sure
up right now.
Okay.
What is your biggest dream? What is your Everest? On April 25th, 2015, a powerful earthquake struck Nepal and rocked Everest, the highest mountain in the world. Thousands of people were killed and 100,000 left homeless. I was on a ladder climbing an ice wall at 6,000 meters, approximately 20,000 feet, when the earthquake struck. The whole wall started shaking left and right. A big chunk of ice, the size of a car, collapsed on my left-hand side. It roared like a rocket taking off. There was so much snow in the air, I couldn't see anything and I couldn't breathe. I was suffocating. I climbed up really fast, past the edge, clipped myself to the anchor, and I thought, this is the end. I'm gonna be buried alive under the avalanche. There was nothing I could do except to hold on. I thought about the sadness my family would feel. Strangely, I felt at peace, and I accepted that this is how my life would end. After about 2 to 3 minutes of falling ice, everything stopped. I was shaking so badly that I couldn't control myself. I tried to take a deep breath, and I started sobbing. What was I doing on Everest? What led me to risk my life on the highest mountain in the world? 4 years ago, I wasn't a mountain climber. I was an electrical engineer working for a large American corporation in California. To go up the stairs, I would use an elevator. I had no camping experience. I've never slept in a sleeping bag, not even in my own backyard. I was scared of spiders crawling inside my sleeping bag. And to give you a better perspective, I hated cold weather. I would wear a heavy jacket at 25 degrees Celsius. Why would a California girl and an engineer decide to climb mountains? What forced me out of my comfort zone? I was in a seminar. The leader of the seminar inspired us to pursue a huge project, something beyond myself and my wildest dreams that I've never imagined, something impossible. My mind blanked out until someone mentioned trekking to Everest Base Camp. Before I knew it, I shouted out, "I'm gonna climb Everest!" People stared at me in disbelief. I couldn't put it back in my mouth without looking like a chicken or a coward. I was so excited, I went home and I Googled how to climb Everest. I decided to start my training by climbing the highest mountain in California, Mount Whitney, which is only 300 meters shorter than Mont Blanc. And I'm not talking about the pen. As soon as I announced it to my friends, they thought I'm crazy. So I decided to go alone in the winter. In my solo attempt, in the middle of a cold, windy, snowy night, My water bottle opened up inside my sleeping bag. I ended up with wet sleeping bag, no tent, freezing. I thought this is how people die in the mountain, so I recorded the last moments of my life on my phone. Here is the video.
خیلی سردمه. هفته بعد از ظهر، نمیدونم تا صبح چجوری سر بکنم. خیلی سرده. دلم نمیخواد اینجا باشم. خیلی سخته. نمیخوام. خیلی سخته. خیلی سردمه. گرم نمیشم.
So I'm talking in Farsi, my mother language. I couldn't think of any English at that moment. This is one of the most stupid things I've ever done in my life. That night, I faced many fears. Fear of being alone, fear of being in extreme dark, in absolute darkness, and lonely, and fear of death. I learned the best way to overcome my fears is facing them and acknowledging them. I learned that I have to train physically and mentally a lot more to get ready for Everest. My next challenges of climbing volcanoes in Ecuador also ended in failure. I found the challenges and physical rigors too difficult. I wondered why anyone would subject themselves to such a danger and discomfort just to be able to say they stood on top of the world. Giving up was the best option. Wouldn't you agree? Except when we step outside our comfort zone and start something, all sorts of things occur that we wouldn't expect. The whole stream of events happens in our favor that we wouldn't even dream of. The same day that I quit mountain climbing, I got a new job offer. I started teaching engineering in California State University. On campus, I met Dr. Jeffrey Cutler, who founded the organization Empower Nepali Girls 15 years ago. He shared some tragic stories about the girls who become victims of human trafficking or are forced to get married at a very young age, some as young as 12. I was so moved by what I heard from him that this gave me an incentive far greater than mere personal achievement. And eventually, I reignited my goal of climbing Everest with the motivation to help in the plight of the girls in Nepal. As a young girl growing up in Iran, I experienced firsthand the oppressive, restrictive environment that makes gender discrimination possible. Growing up, I saw women around me being deprived of their right to education, never achieving their full potential. And now, I promise the Nepali girls that I raise $1 per foot of any mountain that I climb to provide a scholarship for 300 girls to continue their education. Because educating a girl is educating all the generations after her. They are the mothers of the future. Girls with basic education are 4 times less likely to get married as children. When women in a country are empowered, the whole country significantly improves. Investing in a girl is investing in the future. My dream of climbing Everest had a second life. And I trained harder than ever. And soon, I was on a plane to Nepal, where I met the girls for the first time, visited homes, saw their schools, and received smiles everywhere I went. I connected to the girls in a different level because they knew I have experienced some of their pain myself. Some of these girls hadn't met a woman engineer, hadn't met a woman mountain climber. And I wanted with all my heart to be the role model because I never had a role model myself. And I wanted to simply tell them to be hopeful and climb their Everest, which was continuing their education. Back to training, I was climbing an 8,000-meter peak in Chinese Himalayas called Chuoyu. When we do a high-altitude mountain, we go up and down the mountain because of the lack of oxygen, because we want our body to get used to the elevation. We go up, drop off some of our gear, come back down, and rest. We go up and down as many times as possible until everyone is ready. On the 20th day of the climb, I had a headache, sore throat, and I was nauseous and tired. It took me 2 minutes to convince myself to take the next step. I had a hard time keeping up with the rest of the team because they were mostly men, taller than me, with longer strides. I was done. I needed some energy. I needed some motivation. I imagined 2 little Nepali girls with their dark hair and rosy cheeks, Nimsong and Pasang. They were looking at me. They wanted me to continue. I knew by overcoming the hardship and getting to the top of this mountain, I will inspire them to achieve their goals in the face of their challenges. I wanted to teach them not to give up on life and climb their Everest, which was continuing their education. Finally, after 2 years of training every single day, I was ready to meet Mother Everest. It takes 60 days to climb Everest. The 7.8 earthquake happened on the day 25 of the climb. I could hear through the radio that many people are crushed by boulders and ice from the avalanche. 20 people died on the base camp. A helicopter rescued all the survivors within the next 7 days. I came back to California in shock and still sobbing. I did not summit Everest, but climbing external mountains taught me to climb my inner mountains first. I learned how to face my fears, how to step outside my comfort zone, and how to appreciate everything. Mountains taught me to be patient, humble, and accept my failures. Facing challenges, taking risks, tackling the things that frightened me the most are precisely the things that inspired me, as well as inspiring our girls to follow in my footsteps. These girls are attempting something that is absolutely unprecedented, to be the first one in their villages who attain an education and pursue a professional career. They will demonstrate to their families and communities that they are indeed amongst their country's greatest resources. And someday, they will transform the nation. And of course, their Everest is much higher than my Everest. I did not summit Everest, but I have found a bigger mountain to climb, a bigger goal to share with you. In the past 100 years, we have put a man on the moon and climbed the highest mountains in the world, but still haven't climbed a mountain for women's empowerment. Our goal for 2017 and the rest of the 21st century worldwide is providing equal opportunities for women. This has become my Everest, and that's a goal worth sharing. Let's climb this Everest together. Thank you.
Organization
We
and
can.
production company. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Jason Gervitz, and I'm with a film production company called Hidden Tears. And we're turning this story into a feature film that we'll hopefully be shooting next year post-COVID. And I'd like to introduce Sara, who you just saw on the TED Talk. I'm very honored to have her here with us. She's an amazing spirit, inspiration to me, and she's become a very good friend. So welcome, Sara.
Thank you, Jason. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and although I've heard this story many times and we've spent an extraordinary amount of time developing this, we're going to tell the audience a lot more about you and your journey that they didn't hear in the TED Talk. So my first question is, what do you feel is the biggest thing that you have learned in your life since your survival on Everest? That's the first part of the question. And the second part of the question, what is the next biggest thing you've learned since you gave this TED Talk?
I'll answer the second part first.
Okay.
I haven't watched my whole TEDx talk for such a long time. I watched sections of it with other people, but right now that I had the opportunity to watch the whole thing, I realized how I grew up. And I have more experience. I am matured a little bit more, and I guess how I am working the progress, and how all of us are working progress. And it's like a mountain with no top, like working on ourselves, learning skills, improving. These are all things that we can keep working on. And as I was watching my TEDx talk, I'm like, oh, I could say this at this moment, and I didn't say it. I should have said that. So, but at that moment, I had no idea, and that was the best I could do in 2017. So I guess the best thing that I learned from mountain climbing, and I'm still learning, and I will learn even more, is that there is no top to the mountain of learning and improving and being better and helping others. There's so much more that I could do and I can do, and all of us can do, that it's just, I just realized that I improved a lot since 2017. And my speech is much better since 2017 because I'm still speaking. But it's just beautiful to see the progress, and it is beautiful to see that there is so much more to do.
And how has your family seen you or learned to see you differently prior to you climbing the mountain and now?
So at the beginning, they had a hard time to meet the new Sara. They used to the old Sara, the quiet, no self-confidence or low self-confidence, with no opinions really, like, just very introverted. And then I was kind of minding my own business and doing my engineering thing. So it was very hard for people around me, not just my family, friends also, to kind of shift their view and see this new person. Uh, but then I think the most important thing for me to learn and for people who are listening is that just having the courage to be able to step out of our comfort zone and introduce the new version of us to everybody else. And I think that took a lot of courage, even more courage than starting climbing or doing the other things. So yeah, but even though my family, they had a very hard time, they still not comfortable with me when I say I'm going to go back and finally summit Everest. I still haven't made it to the top of Everest. They're not very comfortable with it. But that it, that wouldn't stop me. And having the courage to continue having conversations with them, to inspire them to be okay with me to go back to Everest is another challenge that I'm still dealing with.
Right. One thing I want to say, it looks like there's a chat window over here for me. So if there's anybody that want to ask any questions, you can put them in the chat, and we'll ask Sarah. One thing I wanted to ask you is if you could go back in time to 12-year-old Sarah and show her the TED Talk, what would 12-year-old Sarah say about, would she believe that it's you?
No way. No, even let's say only 2 3 years before the TEDx talk. If I show the TEDx talk to myself at 27, when I was 27, she couldn't believe it. Yeah, it all happened so spontaneously that I never planned for all of this to happen. And I guess I feel very lucky that I met the girls in Nepal, and they inspired me to do all the things that I'm doing right now. So I'm very thankful for that.
So can you tell us a little bit about just maybe one or two of the girls from Nepal, Empower Nepali Girls, who you bonded with in particular, that you'd like the audience to know more about?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of them that I'm in communication with, and over the years, in the past 7 years, we bonded and we're very close. But two of them that I like to tell you a little bit of a short story about. One of them, she's a doctor right now, but before she started studying in medical school, she was from a very rural village. She lost her dad. Her dad went to another country to find a job. He never came back. So her mom was the only source of providing living for the whole family. And we provided a scholarship for them, the Empower Nepali Girls organization, and she moved to Kathmandu, which is capital of Nepal. And then she had very high grades in her high school, so we provided a scholarship for her to go to medical school, which was very unique. She was the only person and the first person who ever done that. And she was the only person in her medical school that was not from a very affluent family. And her family didn't pay for it, the organization paid for her. And she ended up being ranked number 1 in the whole medical school. So
Wow.
now she will be the inspiration and the role model for all the girls from her village, Kathmandu, like all the other 300 girls of the organization, to follow her footsteps. So it warms my heart knowing that she's there as a very strong, successful woman, continued her education, and she'll be a role model for the rest of the girls. That's one. That's a very inspiring story for me. So whenever I'm down, I just think about her, and it brings me up. Uh, Another story that I want to share with you is another girl. I met her 7 years ago for the first time, and she was extremely shy. I asked her to introduce herself, and she looked into my eyes, and she had a hard time looking into my eyes. I kept telling her, look at me, look at me. She was so shy, she didn't want to introduce herself. And uh, I mean, we provided a scholarship for her. She continued her education. I'm a member of Toastmasters, which is a public speaking club, and I was teaching them some public speaking techniques and what to do when you're speaking in front of others. So I go back home to California. I visit Nepal again the next year, and she was very confident. She walked up to me and she said, "I want to take martial art classes." And I was extremely shocked because I wasn't expecting her to want to learn martial arts. She was so shy. It was the last thing that I was expecting to hear from her. And so she started doing some martial art classes. The year after, she said, "Now I want to participate in the contest, in the national contest in Nepal in martial arts," only after a year. And I was again very shocked. But then she participated, and then the next year after, she ranked number 3 in the whole nation. And every year that I went back to Nepal and I visited Nepal, visited the girls, she would come up to me and share a story that I couldn't even imagine somebody can accomplish that in over just a year. So the fourth year, I go back to Nepal and she goes in front of 500 people in the village. There were like parents, teachers, the students, they're all sitting, and my group and I from Empower Nepali Girls, we're all sitting. And she goes on this stage in front of 500 people and gives a talk about how women have to unite and they need to work together to change the situation for other women in Nepal. And I was sobbing. I was crying. I couldn't believe my eyes that this is actually happening. And only after 4 years of a scholarship and going to good school, she is improving so much. So she kept surprising me year after year after year. But if I want to keep continuing this story, I can talk here for the next hour. So, but on my page, you can find more stories about her.
So obviously, your work with Empower Nepali Girls, you're on the board, you've formed really strong relationships, and it's inspired you to help other at-risk girls organizations around the world. So can you talk a little bit about the other incredible climbing expeditions that you've done and adventure expeditions that you've done, and can you name each of the organizations that you've been raising money for in the countries?
Yeah. So after the earthquake and after I couldn't make it to the top of Everest, I just didn't want to teach the Nepali girls to quit. I didn't want to teach them to give up. I just want them to be inspired, and even if when they fail or when something bad happens in their life, I just wanted them to know that they have to continue on. So right after the earthquake, not right after the earthquake, maybe a year after, I announced that I'm gonna go back and climb Everest again, and I'm gonna add 6 more mountains to it. So I'm gonna climb the 7 summits. So 7 summits between mountain climbers are very famous. It's 7 highest peaks on 7 continents. And so I decided to climb all those 7 summits for 7 organizations in each continent who are empowering women. And so I've already climbed 6 out of 7, and number 7 is again Mount Everest that I still haven't made it to the top yet. So each one of these climbs were for a certain organization, and I was raising $1 per foot of all the mountains. For example, if the mountain, let's say Kilimanjaro, the highest peak in Africa, is 19,000 feet. So I promised Kupona Foundation, which is an organization that helps Tanzanian women who are recovering from fistula, which is a disease for the reproductive system for women who have problems when they are very far from hospitals or doctors and they don't see a doctor on time, they develop some problems. So this a disease called fistula. Google it. And then so this was fundraising for that organization, Kupona Foundation, and I promised to raise $1 per foot of Kilimanjaro. Kilimanjaro is 19,300 feet, so I was supposed to raise $19,300. sometime I would make it to 19,000, sometime I wouldn't, sometime even I passed the number. So then I donated all the money that I raised to that organization. It was kind of directly was going to that. So that was one of the organizations. But the other organization that I climbed for in Europe was an organization who were helping women refugees who were settled in Jordan and Iraq. Another in the US was National Crittenden. Another one was Planned Parenthood. Another organization was Omid Foundation, who were helping women in Iran and Afghanistan, women who were victims of abuse and violence, which I climbed the highest peak in Antarctica for those women, and for empowering those women and raising funds for them. And another organization, let's say, how many did I cover? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. So number 7 is Empower Nepali Girls. Yeah.
And you spent a month crossing Greenland for Planned Parenthood. Can you tell us
Yeah.
briefly how that experience was? How was that different than climbing the other mountains? Because that wasn't really a summit, right?
Yeah, that wasn't his summit, and crossing Greenland was the most challenging thing, like physical challenge that I've ever done. Since, in mountain climbing, we always have a base camp. So we go up and down the mountain and get acclimatized. But for Greenland, there was no base camp because the whole time we are skiing across the whole continent, the whole island, and then so every day we had to ski certain hours, and we had to break camp and make camp, which that doesn't happen on the mountains. On the mountains, you have your camps, they're all settled, you don't have to break and make them every single day. And the other thing was like sense of direction and views. Like on the mountains, every time that we go up, the view changes, the sun comes and goes, and you meet a lot of people. It's kind of interesting and entertaining, changing the scenery and also meeting new people. But on Greenland, it was just 6 of us, nobody else the whole time. There are no views. It feels like you're walking inside a ping pong ball. It's just white and nothing else. There's 360 degrees view of just white, and you have to really be mentally strong to keep yourself motivated just by yourself. And mentally and physically, that was one of the challenging things that I've ever done. And another difference between Greenland and mountain climbing is that, in mountain climbing, uh, we carry our stuff in different days. For example, like I take my sleeping bag up the mountain, I'll come back, I'll take other stuff up the mountain. I don't have to carry everything at the same time. But in Greenland, we had to carry 120 pounds the whole time. As we were using our fuel and food, the weight was getting less and less and less. But we started with 120 pounds, which was a lot because I'm almost 120 pounds, and pulling that much weight was very challenging.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of your experiences on some of these expeditions where you really felt like you wanted to give up, or when everything, like for example, when you fell down the crevasse in Ecuador, I believe, I think it was in Aconcagua or Chimborazo, I don't remember.
Yeah,
You can start with that, and then maybe tell some other stories about when you felt like all hope was lost and you still found a way to keep going.
I would say there are a lot of times on the mountains that I decided to quit and give up. Not just once or twice. Sometimes I would say after day 10, especially in a long expedition, like when an expedition is above 30 days or above 20 days, after day 10, I'm kind of in the mode of, okay, I'm done. I saw the nature. It was beautiful. I had a lot of fun. Now I'm tired. I need to shower. I need to use a regular restroom. I need to eat my favorite food. I'm really cold. I want to change my clothes. I want my pillow, like all these things. So usually after day 10, every day I want to go back home. And then I have to convince myself to continue on. And and a lot of times when what really motivates me to continue on, I just have to go back to my why and the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. And it is not easy. A lot of times I'll just have to sit down and meditate for an hour, um, and really recenter myself and ground myself to find my to refine my purpose again. Because when if you have sore throat and you have headache and you're cold and you miss home and you need a warm shower and you have pain all over your body, all your muscles are burning, to really find myself, I have to really regroup and recenter. And and a lot of times maybe a good chat with a family member or a friend would help. A lot of times I ask my friends to write a letter for me for the days that I want to quit. And when I'm on the mountain and I'm about to quit, I'll just read those letters. And those letters are really a reminder for me on why I'm doing what I'm doing. And also, another thing that helps me to continue on the days that I want to challenge, that I'm kind of done with challenging myself and I'm tired and I want to quit and go back home, I'll just think about what I'm learning from this experience. And if I continue on, what I can learn from this experience, or what are the things that I can work on. Like, can I work more on my climbing skills? Can I work more on my patience? Maybe I can work more on my communication skills. And it's like I make the whole experience uh, to a learning experience. Or if we are in a big base camp and there are a lot of people, I just go tent by tent and talk to people about Empower Nepali Girls and the organization, and I share stories and I make new friends. And that's how like I keep myself motivated and inspired. And it's kind of, I want to say, it's very similar to our normal life. It's very similar to here, because like right now we are in the COVID situation, we are at home, it feels like living in a tent. It's like a small, the good thing is I have access to shower and a regular restroom and normal food, and I don't have that on the mountain. But it's kind of the same. You're very secluded, isolated, and you have to keep yourself busy and motivated and inspired. So kind of all those experiences on the mountains really helped me to keep myself grounded here. And that's I teach. I'm teaching this a lot these days to my clients, to in my speaking engagements, in my workshops, and that's helping me. And as I'm repeating it for other people, it's helping them to see the COVID situation as a moment, as a place, as a time to work, to be better, learn new skills, work on themselves, and create a better life.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the original, the source of when you learned this moment of giving up and finding new hope, and that was when you fell down the crevasse in Ecuador. You gave up climbing for good. At that moment, you were decisive, and then comes along this accidental angel named Jeffrey Kotler. And when we were, Jordan and I, who's the co-founder of Hidden Tears, we went to Everest Base Camp. We hiked Everest Base Camp with Sara and Jeffrey a couple of years ago, and we got to meet all the girls, and it was a really amazing experience for us. And we really got to see how much you and Jeffrey were really bonded. It's just almost this otherworldly bond that we saw was so beautiful. Can you just talk a little bit about that moment that you gave up and found Jeffrey and the evolution of your relationship? Because it's so critical to this to your life, and it's so critical to this movie we're making.
Yeah. So Ecuador was the the ranges that I was climbing in Ecuador, the three mountains that I was climbing in Ecuador, was my second attempt to test myself that if I'm capable of becoming a mountain climber or not. And I had no idea. Until then, I kept failing. I never summited any mountain. And the same thing happened in Ecuador. And on top of not making it to the summit, I also fell into a crevasse, which that was very dangerous. I could have died easily. Like, I was lucky because my group held the rope and I was hanging in the middle of the crevasse, like looking at its beautiful turquoise icy walls and look at the icicles at different shapes and different sizes. But then at the same time, I knew I could be dead right now. I could fall in the bottom of the crevasse where nobody can ever find my body, and that would be the end of it. And since I failed up to that point, I never made it to the top of any mountain. I thought, this is it. I have to quit, and this is not for me. And the same day, I went down and I was kind of thinking, I need to really quit and stop this and just go home, sell all my climbing gear and get rid of everything. And same day, I got a job offer to teach in Cal State Fullerton, which as soon as I started teaching, I was looking for another buddy to go hiking in Southern California together. And somebody introduced me to Dr. Jeffrey Cutler, he is the founder of Empower Nepali Girls. And I went to his office to kind of talk about mountain climbing and compare notes and share experiences. But really, what happened was I saw pictures of Nepali girls on his wall, and he shared the stories of the girls who become victims of human trafficking or are forced to get married at a very young age. And I just saw, heard the story from him, and I saw those pictures, and I was moved. I couldn't go back to my normal life knowing that this is happening on the other side of the planet. I guess up to that point in my life, I never paid attention to such a thing. And that moment, I was mentally ready to hear or understand or absorb this kind of information. And even though I grew up to Iran, but I always thought that's the normal way that people are treating women. And when I moved to the US, I saw the difference. I saw that here is very different from the way they treat me back in Iran. But then when I heard the stories of Nepali girls, that's when everything clicked. And I kind of, at that moment, I developed a new understanding of what I want to do for the rest of my life and what is my passion, what is my calling. And that was my birthday, I guess. That was the turning point in my life, that now I wanted to dedicate my life to other people on the other side of the planet that I even haven't met them by that point, but I just fell in love with them because I thought helping them is kind of really helping my little self, my little sister, and my all these little girls all over the world who need my help, and I didn't even pay attention to them up to this point. And that increased my incentive, my motivation, like 1,000 times more. And then I really started training for Everest. Up to that point, it was just very personal, to prove myself, to kind of it was very small. The project was very small for me, and that's why I decided to quit. But then as soon as I changed my perspective and I found my calling and I found this organization and I met the girls, like, the whole game changed and made me even more dedicated and committed to the cause.
Great. So you've obviously been pursuing this ever since your climb, and you've been traveling all over the world. And Jeffrey's still been very involved with all of this. He climbed with us. So, obviously we're making this movie. We really want it to be entertaining. We want it to be inspiring. It's going to be all those things. But for all the people listening and want to know how to maybe work with us or be involved with the work we're doing. How do you feel that a movie, a feature film of this magnitude, could change or help the work that you're already doing for these organizations and for Empower Nepali Girls specifically?
Mhm. I think making a movie would be a very good platform. Like movies are very good platforms for a lot of people to, in a very short time, to hear all these stories and watch every all the experiences that I had in my life. We were trying to help other people. So I would say making a movie would really help many people all over the world who hear stories of these girls who are just um, very amazing and smart and intelligent, and they have all the rights to have the same opportunities as a normal person. And making this movie would help that many people all over the world can watch this and get to know about the organization, not just this organization, many other organizations who are doing women's empowerment all over the world, including Nepal, and would raise a lot of funds and awareness for these girls so that we can stop this cycle of human trafficking. We stop the cycle of child marriage, stop the cycle of all these abuse and violence that are happening all over the world towards women. It's 2021. I think at this point we have to be able to a lot more. And unfortunately, COVID had a very negative effect all over the world on the movements for women's empowerment, because a lot of women had to stay at home, take care of their families, the elder ones, the children. And it's kind of now it is time for us, all of us, to take a step, even if it is a very small step towards women empowerment and help these women all over the world who are suffering from the situation that they are in, and have provide just a little of opportunity for them. So making a movie makes it much easier for to really bring more awareness for causes similar to Empower Nepali Girls organization.
And if people wanted to give whatever they could give to these organizations through you, what would that money be spent on specifically? Just if you can just give us a little bit of a list of the practical things that where this money would go.
Mhm. Our organization, Empower Nepali Girls, is very focused on providing education for the girls. So we find these families who are in need, and the children, the kids in the family who are inspired to continue their education, and the families are also supportive of the girls to continue their education. And we just provide for their education so that they can continue on. There is tons of research out there about when women at a very younger age, when they get elementary school or secondary school, which is middle school education, the age of marriage increases. The mothers are more healthy. They know how to take care of their children. They empower their sons and daughters, and it changes the whole country and empowers the whole next generation. So I would say really making this movie would help to make a difference both in our organization and specifically, um, for example, just to give you numbers, maybe it makes it much easier for everybody to see how easy it is to help a little girl in Nepal. The cost for one girl to go to school one whole year is $170. One whole year of school. Um, it's very easy to make a difference in Nepal. Like, I don't know where everybody is participating from, but if a group, like four of us in the US, want to go out to dinner and have drinks and all that, it would be $170. So it's very easy to make a difference in Nepal. And that's why when I was climbing Everest, I thought $29,000 can make a huge difference. So, so all the money that we raise would go towards the education of the girls. for this specific organization, Empower Nepali Girls.
All right. So if anybody wants to get in touch with Sara or get in touch with us about the movie or how to give to any of these organizations, you can email me directly at jason@hiddentearsproject.org. jason@hiddentearsproject.org. You can find our website. You can find us on Facebook. And we can set up an interview, or if you want to speak to Sara, that's no problem. Lastly, Sara, before we let you go, can you tell us your plans to summit Everest in the near future?
I was hoping to go this year, but because of the vaccination situation, I'm still waiting to get vaccinated, which I don't think it will happen by March or April. So since the season for Everest is April and May of each year, I'll just have to wait until next year, hopefully. And I was actually hoping to climb Everest when the movie comes out. So I'll just have to wait for the movie to come out and then I'll climb Everest.
Great, great. Well, thank you for being with us today, and I hope that the people watching have been inspired. Again, if anybody wants to get in touch with us or learn more about the film, please go to our website at hiddentearsproject.org or visit our Facebook page or contact me at jason@hiddentearsproject.org. All right. Thank you so much, Sara. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.